I have to zoom in on this one because there's Alfie, my little dog. He's off his leash and he's drinking some water out of a spring. It's dried up a few times in the summer, but mostly it's been wet. He's going behind a tree. You can see how well camouflaged he is if I zoom out. Right, you can barely see the little beast. Anyway guys, I'm in the woods as I normally try and get to, well, in some woodland, not in a particular, in some woodland, local to me. Very local, it's about a 5-minute walk. Of late I've not been getting out as much as I wanted to. Well, I have been getting out, but I've not been sort of travelling as much as I wanted to. I haven't done the walks that I've done in previous years this year. Partly because I've had a change, well, not a change of employment, a change of employment location. I still work for the same company. It's proved very fortuitous. It means I can now live with my lady instead of sort of commuting to work twice a week and many things. Anyway, got some good plans coming up for the forthcoming year. Between this October and next October. And more on that later. It's a fine morning. A promise of rain, and I'm hoping that there might be some fungi about. An acquaintance of mine over on the other side of Kent in Herne Bay has come across the most seps, penny buns, Boletus edulis, call them what you will, in 20 years. And I have seen diddly squat round here. So anyway, I'm going to proceed to my tea place. I've got some things to review, poems to read, and maybe well guys, well, at least there is fungi sprouting up. Not the edible sort though. Not sure what these are. Really need to get myself a small gathering box to collect unidentified fungi. Right, draft proofing. Right guys, as some of you may know, in a few weeks I'm off up to the Lake District, and it's getting towards the end of October. We've had our first heavy frosts of the year, and I've been sitting back and trying to work a way of insulating the hammock. I've got very good, and I've got 5-season closed cell foam mats for underneath, but I was looking for something for keeping the draft out. I've got the super tarp, or the big tarp as you may know, and looking through the Ultimate Hang, all about hammock camping, there are 1 or 2 companies that do a type of sausage to go over the hammock while you sleep in it. Well, I thought that looked a bit bulky for me, and I'm quite a hot sleeper. I can get, you know, even in the middle of winter it can get very warm in bed for me, and so I thought I'd have a go at this. And basically what I've done, I've got an old wool blanket and a couple of pegs, and I slung it over. I've just had a go inside it. It's quite snug and cosy actually. I've got ventilation at either end, so it won't get too stuffy, and it looks quite good. It feels quite good, and hopefully it will keep the draft off. As I said, it gets very cold up in the Lake District, so basically I've got the mosquito net up, which is integral to the hammock, and then over the top of that I've got this wool blanket. So let us know what you think guys. Well guys, here we are, we're back in the woods. I've just done an experiment with setting this up to do as a, because I'm going out in the winter and I don't want to sleep off the ground. I'm intending to do a bit more travelling next year, as I may have mentioned. I want to try and get out and get out on the moors and do a few more. I've ended up quite a lot over the last year or so coming to this particular spot in the woods. It's a dog hair. Where I come and have a play is public woodland, It's actually now designated as the largest village green in the country. But sadly there are people, and they're primarily young people, who decimate the woodlands. You will see in a minute what I mean. I had quite a rant about this, and I've actually filmed it twice. One's going to go onto the Fossil Facebook page, which is the Friends of Sherwood Lake and Woodland. In fact, it's more the Friends of Sherwood Lake. It's more to do with the fishing rather than the woodland. They saved it from being developed, and I'm in the mind that I wish the developers had got hold of it, because, you know, I come into this woodland and I see trees cut down willy-nilly, and to be quite frankly, it's pissing me off. If I could get hold of the protagonists, I'd grab an axe helve and poleaxe the little buggers, because there is no need for this wanton destruction. Whom do I blame? Well, there's a whole list. I blame people like the Kent Highwell Partnership for taking people into the woods and giving them bushcraft days. Now, there's always a certain element within the group, and I've noticed this on courses, that think it's okay to go out and chop a tree down and make a shelter. That's not the way you make shelters. You make shelters from debris around you. Okay, you're very picky about the dead wood you pick up, just in case it's too bunky or it's too rotten. Sadly, I suppose the popularity of Bushcraft TV, guys like Ray, who I admire very much, and he always puts over the leave no trace sign, and guys like Bear Grylls, all to do with survivalism. It's not survivalism, it's wanton destruction. Even when I was a kid and I made a den, I always made a den from what was around me. We never ever cut a tree down, or even cut a piece of a tree down. And if you're going to cut trees down, you have to be very specific about it. Personally, this needs managing, this woodland, and a lot of the old coppice needs taken out. It would actually decimate the woodland, piss the squirrels off, because they wouldn't have any trees, and I wouldn't get any chestnuts, though the chestnuts have been pretty poor this year. Anyway, that's that little rant over. It saddened me. I felt anger, you know, because it is just wanton destruction. They've taken out some lovely hollies, some fairly mature chestnut. It's going to take a long while for that to grow. The hollies won't grow straight up, they'll branch out, and it'll just carry on. There's no visible woodland management here. But then again, it's always a bit of a double-edged sword with me when it comes to woodland management. I feel that some of this old coppice needs taking out, but then, you know, you end up with quite a nice open space. But you need to leave some trees in, selfishly, so I can hang the hammock up. Good chair. That's it by way of a rant. I've got my little bushcraft group, Kiss Bushcraft, is steadily growing. I'm getting some nice members on there. It's open to anyone around the world, but primarily, really, I think for people that basically operate in the North Woods, or what we would call the North Woods. This isn't really North Woods, but it's close to it. The boreal forest, all that sort of thing. It's and I was asked the other day, you know, someone said I left one bushcraft group, and they said, oh, you left our group and set up your own. I just said, yeah, it just didn't meet my needs. The reason why I left the group was there were a certain element on there. You see, you could add in, anybody could add anybody, and there was a certain element on that group that they weren't bushcraft, they weren't outdoorsmen as such. You know, they liked fancy knives, knives that are basically weapons. Any knife with two edges on it, you know, like a Sykes Fairbairn knife, that's a weapon. That's not a bushcrafting way. A daisho or a katana or tainto, that's a weapon. That's not a bushcrafting way. And I feel very strongly about this. I like to come out into the woods. Sometimes I'll sit here and rant like I'm doing now, and other times I'll sit back and enjoy the peace and quiet. In fact, it was so quiet last week, I saw the brush end of a fox go past me. Actually, it would have been behind me as I'm sitting now, about 20 yards away. And little doggy, who's over there, and he's sitting very quietly, he saw the fox and he went, whoa, 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 and chased after it. And he'd come back a few seconds later. But it is quite fun to watch it. And here we have deer come through these woods. The ruts happen, so we won't be hearing any of those barking. But I digress. My bushcraft group is for keeping it simple. As I've mentioned on the intro on the group page, it's on Facebook. It's called Kiss Bushcraft, K-I-S-S. Oops, mosquito net get me. Reviews on equipment. You know, I'm gonna. You know, I've got a Trangia burner that I've had for such a long time now. I'm really trying to think of when I bought this Trangia. I think it was in the early 80s, easily the latest 1985, and I'm still using it. The only thing I've ever had to replace was the O-ring on the burner itself. In fact, I've got another burner so that I can keep the whole thing as a unit when I go out. Kettle's seen better days. I've managed to burn the handle off, well, the rubber off the handle. It's got a bit of jute twine around it at the moment, which I've managed to burn, and almost managed to melt the little handle on the lid. It's good. It's a good stove. Other than that, it's been a pretty good week. Well, since I last did a video, and I've got to make the effort to go and get out and stretch out my tentacles a bit more, get a bit further out. I really have neglected getting out over the last year or so. Partly it's due to a bit of, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's work, and also the fortunate situation I found myself in of actually meeting somebody that has enhanced my life. That's all I could say. She enhanced my life, and I think she's wonderful. I mean, you know, obviously we're gonna get married next year. Other than that, there's not a lot to say. In the next sequence, I'm gonna do the review on a Trangia stove, and then got a few poems to read, a couple of poems, and a book to review. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of this tea, have a lie down for a bit, you know, swing on the old hammock, because I enjoy swinging on this hammock. It's great, and catch you in it. Okay, rant. This is the bad end of bushcraft. People unable to make a decent debris shelter, and what have they done? They have chopped that tree. They have ruined this stand of hollies, chopped another tree down there. That birch is gone, that sweet chestnut, and that sweet chestnut as well, and they've snapped off that oak. For what? For nothing. They can't even do a proper debris shelter. I am so disgusted. Right guys, here we go. As I mentioned a bit earlier, this is the stove I bought so many years ago, and it's still in pretty good nick. This is the Trangia Storm Cooker. There are more up-to-date versions. So you can have non-stick pans, and the newer versions have an ability to put a small gas burner, but I stick to the ever-trusty Trangia burner. As you can see, this has seen better days, but I tend to use this just for snuffing the flame out. And what do you get for your money? You get a burner, 2 pots, a lid for your pots or as a fry pan, and a kettle. The kettle I tend to use more than anything else. The frying pan, it's great as a lid, that's all I can say. I will not fry anything in that because it just sticks to the bottom, and you really need a non-stick pan. Obviously you've got the pot grab for this. The stove is bomb-proof basically. I think the only way you can really wreck it is to run it over. I can actually fit my billy can on this, and occasionally I use a small wok or a small non-stick frying pan if I'm frying outside, but I've gone off eating fry-up breakfast outdoors. I'm trying to find something else to eat other than that. I do like my porridge, and I might be going back to that. Burn time on a full one of these, the burn time's around about 20 minutes. I do have indoors somewhere. It works well in high wind. In fact, it works very well in high winds. You just put these top on like that. Right. If you're using the frying pan, or if I'm using my frying pan at home, I tend to pull that out like that. Frying pan sits on there, works very well. Flip these down. Kettle that has seen better days, fits on there like so. I have a bigger Trangia kettle, but that's for my Trangia triangle, which I will be going over in another video. By the way, I will remark on this, I am doing a series of reviews on all my cooking systems, from this, the Svea Swedish Army cook set, which is similar to the Trangia one, and the many other systems that I've got indoors. So the kettle fits on there very comfortably. It's well sheltered, you know. The only problem is, and you normally find this during the colder weather as we're having now, particularly during the winter, the meths burner is a bit of a bugger to light. But the way around that is to keep it in your pocket. What I have done, rather than keep the meths burner in the kettle, I'll keep it separate, and I'll keep it in one of these. It's just a small tub, I think it's a 500ml one, and I'll have a piece of tissue paper in the bottom to absorb any moisture, and the burner sits in there very nicely, and it's well protected. As I say, colder weather, keep it in your pocket. Other than that, it's a very good stove. Can't fault it. It packs up very well and very small. In fact, I shall pack it up, or give it a preliminary pack up to show you what it packs up like. I shall be using the burner in a minute anyway. Fits in there. You flip these up, drop that in there, or the other way around should I say. Whoops, an easy. Kettle fits in there, and I've got a little orange bag that it all slides into. The actual, originally the Trangia does come with a strap to strap it all together. Packs up very nice. It's not the lightest of cook systems, but it's functional, and it's right on the button as far as work goes. If you're just going out for the day, you don't even have to take all the cook pots. You just need to take the burner, it goes back in there, and you're on kettle. Very easy to light. You can either use a fire flash or match or a lighter. It's well worth the money. They retail about 40 to 50 pounds, and for that price you got yourself a really good system. Some people may knock it, but each to their own. It's one of my favourite cook systems. So there you go, guys. Take one. There are many books on what we do, playing in the woods. Most of them actually deal with the basics. You know, you buy your book, whether it's Central Bushcraft, by Ray Mears, Morse Kahansky's Northern Bushcraft, It's one by John O'Leary called Wilderness Skills, I think. I've got the book indoors. Or The Survival Advantage by Andrew Lang. They all deal basically with one aspect of getting you set up. Basically learning your knot tying, how to make a camp, procurement of water and food. But ultimately in the end they all lack one thing, and it's the moving on to living in the woods. I don't propose living here 24/7. There is a part of me, and there's part of all of us that would love to do that, but it's impractical in this day and age. It's impractical. Primarily you will spend a lot of your time procuring firewood, water and food. In the evenings, while you're sitting round your fire, you'll be carving yourself a spoon or something, or a bowl, cookser. But there is a very good book, and the guys at Woodsmoke, or one, I think it was Steve Hanton at Woodsmoke, put me onto this one. And if you can see that, it's called Cache Lake Country, Life in the Northwoods by John J. Rowlands. It's Woods Law by a woodsman. The guy was a timber sculptor for a Canadian timber company. He found a little place in Canada, and they basically paid him to live there. He built a log cabin and he lived there for some 20 years, I believe. Every chapter in the book is a month of the year, and in every chapter there's more or less a project that he does. Now if you don't get inspired by this book, or you don't try and attempt a project, whether it's making a paddle or even a crystal wireless, you've missed the point. It's great. He's on about he makes a sledge, he harnesses his dog up to the sledge, he goes fishing in the lake, goes canoeing. Highly recommended book, and it's a great one to keep in your backpack as well. At the moment I'm reading Voyageur by Robert Twigger. He's an English guy that canoed down the Peace and Parsnip rivers from Lake from Lake Athabasca in Canada, and it's an amazing book. I'm about halfway through it. It's great. He actually meets up a guy and they build a birch bark canoe about 25 foot long. It's a great read. The most telling thing in that was the fact that in the 1700s, when Alexander Mackenzie first did it, a First Nations Indian come up to the people at Fort Churchill and said, you know, with bitumen, and he turned around and says it was worthless. Now they're completely wrecking the area around Berta where this bitumen come from, because it is tar sand, and they're extracting the oil from the sands, and they're completely wrecking the environment. Anyway, that's another little rant over and done with. There's much literature out there, you know, stories, how the trees come about, what the spider said, what the hare did, why dogs are our companions. Some wonderful stories. In fact, there's a story about Inktomi, the spider, and the reason why it spins its web every night. Inktomi, as far as I know, used to live on the moon. Now a spider says to hare, I've got a secret for mankind, and I would like you to take this secret to mankind, it's so how they can live in harmony with the world, how they can live in peace, how they would never ever have troubles again in their life. So hare said, yeah, okay, I will take the message. So hare was running from the moon and got distracted. This annoyed Inktomi, the spider. So Inktomi come down and overnight she wove the message into the web. Unfortunately, we lost the ability to read the message in the web. Hare was supposed to have given us that ability. So every night, Spider will weave her web, and in that web there is a message for us, but we have never learned the language. A chap called Felix Dennis, poet, and one publisher of a magazine in the early 70s called Oz. He mentions in this poem a word called urchin, and it's an old country name for a hedgehog. So here we go. Autumn harvest. Wet leaves littering an unmown lawn, grey clouds scudding from the hills, coal black rooks in the rain-soaked fields, and blue bottles dozing on sills. Thorn haws glowing in the glittering hedge, fox paws printed in the mud, sickled winged sifts and swallows in the mist. Africa is singing in their blood. Drunk brown wasps on a windful cocks, fat lambs bleating on the ramp, shy chanterelles under moss-backed stones, silage spilling from the clamp, damp fog silvering a new ploughed field, urchins drowning in the brooks, deep armchairs by the ashlog fire, baccy and bourbon and books. Mentions the ash tree there. Sadly in the UK there's been confirmed cases of ash dieback. I'm asking you guys out there that live in the UK, if you see this, report it to the Woodland Trust or to the Environment Agency. It's a must to get this disease that has come from the continent eradicated, because there are 3 trees that are prime to our English woodland. That is the beech, the oak and the ash. Without those 3, our woodland will disappear. And it's interesting to note, we are the least wooded country in Europe. Now I've got another poem here. I did have, I can't seem to find it now. Here we go. The Blackthorn Winter. Come spring, you will find that if there's still snow on the ground, and the blackthorns being one of the first of the trees to come into blossom, it will be known as a Blackthorn Winter. And this is another poem by Felix Dennis. Scraps of blackthorn blossom and fleck my coat, another gust of hail and down they float. A fine spring this, the earth is as cold as stone, northeasterlies but cut you to the bone. The primroses have withered one by one, the bluebells cower, praying for the sun. Rumbling thunder stalks the streaming hills, a sneaking frost has slain the daffodils. My boots are caked in mud, the doggies too. Above the clump of ash the sun breaks through. A sudden glance of light on the bark and bud, my heart leaps up, the soul song of a lark. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed those couple of poems. I'm being joined by the crows. There's something amazing about autumn and crows. They go together. You know, you've got the leaf fall, the myriads of colours as I mentioned last week, and well, what can I say? Be blessed guys, and have a good Samhain. May the coming year be full of hope, full of wonder and full of joy. Well, my guys, fly agaric. Well guys, I blew it. Part of the pieces. Unfortunately, this is a bit too far gone for my liking. I shan't be taking this home to eat it. What I shall do is I shall leave it on the wayside for slugs, snails and squirrels.